This is the Fleet Europe podcast, hosted by Luberto van Buiten. Today's topic, driving behavior, how to get premium drivers to go electric. Introducing today's guest, Michael Pohl, consultant at Fleet Expert and member of the IFMI expert team, and Lothar Schupet, the CEO for Zeekr Europe. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to this Fleet Europe podcast. And in this podcast, we discuss the most relevant trends and news from the fleet and mobility industry. I'm Luberto van Buiten from Nexus Communication, and we are the publisher of FleetEurope.com, GlobalFleet.com, and lots of events like the Fleet Europe Days. And that's where we are today for this podcast. And this podcast will be all about changing driver behavior to speed up the electrification. And I'm going to do that with two guests, Michael Pohl, former fleet manager of Microsoft and currently fleet consultant, and one of our IFMI experts. Michael, welcome.
Thank you very much, Luberto.
Looking forward to it?
I'm looking forward to it.
Very good. Very good. And we have the CEO of Zeekr, Lothar Schupet. Lothar, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're at the Fleet Europe Days at this moment. You also gave a presentation, quite a new brand, of course. How were the reactions so far, also in the fleet market?
Yeah, as you obviously say, we are a young brand. We are just 2 years in Europe live. We have substantially grown during the last months now, live in 11 markets. And the demand is quite high. We are really happy with the consumers who are responding to our products. In most of the markets, we were able to create a demand overtaking most of the Chinese competition at least, and coming closer to the traditional brands. So our fast start is obvious, and we want to grow further during the next years.
Yeah, okay. Looking forward to it. We of course keep an eye on it, as we do as a journalist. Yeah, of course, this is going to be a very neutral and objective podcast about Zeekr, but about electrification as well. But people, I understood, we have more or less a Zeekr fan at our table, right, Michael?
Well, a very young fan of Zeekr. Indeed, I had the opportunity to test drive their cars, especially the 7X, which was quite impressive, I must say. And I'm really looking forward to have the opportunity to do a longer test drive with the car and see how it's going to perform compared to the traditional ones, because I think there's a good chance for this car. Absolutely.
Yeah, and but the good thing is also that you are a very seasoned fleet manager, and now you are consulting fleet managers. So what makes this Zeekr interesting for fleet managers? What are the upsides of this car?
Well, in my humble opinion, and Lothar, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the point is that when you take the price value comparison, what you get for the price, where the car is kind of settled in the competition field, I think it's really interesting. I was really impressed by the quality the car has been shown, by the features he will get. The technical data is very impressive. The price point is very good, but I'm not here to making sales for Zeekr. Thank you. But, the first impression was very, very good, I must say. And you get even features what you can't have for money from the traditional ones. And I think that might be an advantage. Plus, and then I stop, your warranty offering, I think that is very impressive, which documents how strong you believe your cars are. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so but I think there are good points, because you also know where fleet managers look for in a car. So that's and you try to touch all those or check all those boxes, of course. But what I can imagine, and that's based on Zeekr, but I think all premium brands. It seems to me that the higher in the organizations you get position-wise, the higher you get, the harder it is to get people in electric cars, so electric premium cars, let alone of an unknown brand. So how do you do that? How do you manage that?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question because that is what we are facing every day, right? We don't deny it. We are still an unknown brand. We still need to do a lot of marketing and awareness activities. But I'm really happy to hear your statements today because obviously some of the marketing is working and some of the product features we are also advertising clearly. Especially the price value proposition where we are really proud of is already taking a resonance with you. And that's also the key. I worked before 23 years in a high performance brand and a premium brand from a traditional German manufacturer. And moving now to Zeekr, I exactly faced that challenge. Now, how can I get drivers excited about a no-name brand? And our clear direction was always to say we need to be no compromise with our product substance. We need to be with no compromise in customer convenience, and that's what we live every day. So we're trying to deliver the best products, and that for a price which is really attractive in terms of the normal price positioning, but also what features you have in that you don't have to add more options to get a nice car. You have it from the beginning.
Yeah, so that is the benefit. I can imagine that for you it's also a benefit that you work for a traditional car brand and that you from that perspective also know how the European fleet market works and what they want. Is that something that perhaps you had to learn the Zeekr organization to tell them, sorry people, but this is how it works in Europe, or?
Yeah, you're touching a very interesting point in terms of cultures. Because when I moved 3 years ago to that company, basically building up the organization from scratch in Europe, we came with big ambitions and we understand with most of the executive team the European market, having spent more than 25 years each of us in Europe. So we know the particularities. It's a complex market. The channels are very difficult. The fleet market is so particular that people from different continents don't understand that. So what was our big challenge, which we underestimated because we knew how we have to approach the market, to convince our colleagues in the headquarters overseas why things we are developing are the right ones, why it's not so simple just to sell the cars like they do it probably in China. And these topics were one of the main points where we also were very keen building the team, that we have everything Europeanized. So we always state from us, we have the power of a giant because of the geely in the back, but we have a European soul. And that European soul brings exactly the right answers to the questions of the European customer.
Yeah, and can you just in short, but take one topic that for the overseas headquarters was very strange that it works like that in Europe?
Maybe I take the topic as we're here on the fleet audience, the topic of residual values and the topic how to enter channels to stabilize residual values. Of course, when you come from abroad and you see a lot of opportunities, sending cars to rental channels, low profit margin channels who are just driving volume, these things were not understood when we refused offers from companies who just wanted to have thousands of cars. But we said, no, we need to be very clear with our consumer target groups and with the channels we are in, that we are not exaggerating it. Then the entire residual value steering, why we are giving 10 years warranty on our cars, because that stabilizes the residual value. Why we are having a non-complex trim structure of our cars, because we don't want to have low trim 16-inch wheel cars on the road which look simply ugly and are in the used car market very low in their transaction prices. So there are a lot of topics coming in, and that to explain to someone outside Europe is not easy.
It's now, and I can imagine to touch one of those topics, Michael. The residual value is maybe not so much a big thing for consumers, for the driver themselves, but the warranty can be an important aspect also when the car has to be remarketed, right? So how important is that warranty in your opinion?
Well, the estimation of the lease companies, how they set residual values, how they set the cost for maintenance and repairs, obviously steers how the overall lease rate is composed, right? Same way as, okay, how long, if a car breaks down, how long is it really off the road until it's driving again? So long waiting period, like we've seen that from other brands. That is something which has a very negative impact on the image of the car. And therefore, I think this whole topic, although not immediately visible to a driver or to a consumer, steers a lot how a car is positioned financially into the market versus the competition, which is known.
Yeah, to come to the driver and driver behavior, what in your experience are the biggest behavioral barriers for drivers when they have to switch from the ICE car to a BEV?
I believe it's still, unfortunately, that there's two fronts. You have the ICE car front and the ICE car fans, and you have the BEV fans. And very often people who have never driven an electric vehicle are talking badly about how an electric vehicle behaves, right? So the best thing is, of course, to test it. That is the first thing what people need to do. But to give you a couple of buzzwords, I would say range anxiety, that is typical. EVs are super expensive. They are not useful for vacation. It's just not easy for charging and all of that, which is mainly rumors. The only valid point, I think, today is, okay, if you have to tow a trailer, very often, if you go with a caravan on vacation very often, then eventually an EV might not be the right choice. But for nearly every other application, meanwhile, technology is so far, charging times are so low meanwhile, especially with cars with this 800-volt technology. It goes so fast, you don't even have enough time for an espresso at a charging station. When you are back, you have already refilled 300 kilometers. So that's an easy one. But it's really an emotional topic, how to bring employees or drivers into an electric vehicle. So doing the real testing is the best what you can do.
Yeah, so yeah, that was my second question. How do you change that driver behavior, especially when you are in the premium segment? Because of course you can say top down, from tomorrow we all going to drive electric, but then you have unhappy employees in your, let's say, on a management level. That's also not what you want. So how can we change that behavior?
I believe the whole electrification topic is not if we are going to electrify simply, but when we are going to electrify. And many corporations, many companies have already their sustainability targets. Many of them say, okay, we are going to be net zero in 2030 or 2035, whatever. So if the whole electrification becomes part of the overall company strategy in terms of sustainability and emission results and so on, yeah, which is actively steering, for example, if you want to have a credit from your bank, if your sustainability ratings are bad, you won't get a good interest rate, for example, very easy one and very simplified. Yeah? But that's the point. There might be penalties in the future if you are not achieving given emission limits. And therefore, if the whole transition into electric mobility becomes part of the overall strategy of the company, it's embedded in the culture, then for employees, it's not so hard anymore, because then they identify themselves with the company. And at the end of the day, I think we all should be good citizens, right? So everyone should do the right thing for the planet. And emission is certainly not good for the planet.
No, we can agree on that. By the way, that would be a whole different topic.
Maybe one perspective, which is really interesting, because you're touching a point which is completely diverse in Europe. If you look into Norway with more than 95% now EV adoption, you look at Denmark, meanwhile above 60, you look at Sweden above 30, Netherlands now going into that direction. There it's already common sense to buy an EV, and it's already creating a majority without incentives, because the incentives were phased out already several years ago, or at the moment phasing out in most of the countries, because they are over that point. So for them, it's completely normal to buy an EV. While in Germany, and being a German, we know that it's still all these anxieties and all these, you said, rumors around. But if you really test the car, and it's not doing a test drive, that you're overwhelmed by 600 horsepower electric and the really emotions, but really in used cases, you will see that 600 kilometer range with a fast charging, like 13 minutes we have from 10 to 80, is a normal use case you can use every day. I'm coming from a petrol brand, very high performance. I'm now 3 years in, and I'm driving probably per year 40,000 kilometers in an electric car, and I got used to it. That's the normal situation.
Yeah, but I heard someone say recently that if you really want to be competitive on the European market, you need to conquer Germany. And that's maybe even the hardest market to conquer as well, because they have some, let's be honest, beautiful brands of their own. With that combustion engine feel, so to say. So is that indeed a very hard market also for Zeekr, but in general for electric brands to conquer?
I think it is. So we cannot deny it. Germany is the most difficult market in Europe for new entrants, simply due to the heritage of really top premium brands. We have to name it, that's the case. However, I think all the ingredients you need to have is listening to the consumer demands and customers, because they will still stay with brands they are used to, but once price value proposition and a lot of things are simply better, they also don't get fooled and just pay more. So we just did a study in Europe, we also published it, that the trends are moving completely now. So what is happening is that now already every second customer is saying my next car could be an EV, and considering it also in Germany. And secondly, what is happening is that this rejection towards different brands, especially from China, which is a couple of years ago, completely is moving. So they even consider now Chinese cars with better technology, with much more better performances, and that's where we tap in now. So where we need to catch the people with test drives, how good they are performing, and that they are an alternative in the premium segment. And nonetheless, in Germany, it will be more difficult than in other markets.
Yeah, and what? So because Michael, you also said that how the question is not. If, but when everyone has to electrify the fleet. You also mentioned the hiccups, like the infrastructure, the hassle with charging, range anxiety, maybe even still. Do you also still get those kind of questions, Lothar, from the fleet managers themselves?
Of course. I mean, the old generations of thinking EV is difficult, and you mentioned it, the rumors around, like, still you have downtimes and the charging network is not there anymore. And probably it fits for a few countries in Europe, which are really more south or eastern oriented, but in Central Europe and especially in Northern Europe, that is really, I believe, old way thinking. It's not the case anymore. You have everywhere fast charging networks, which are good. And by the way, you don't need fast charging networks with these high speed of 400 kilowatt or something, because who's driving more than 600 kilometer in one drive? You need to have a pause. And if you charge then 20-30% in 2, 3, 5 minutes, okay, you can continue. That is what people don't see. They always calculate and say, oh, I can drive 600 kilometers and then I need to stop for a longer time to make it full again.
I have to admit that when I had a diesel car and I saw that I could drive 900 kilometers, I thought, well, then I want to stop anyway. So I can get from the Netherlands where I live to the surroundings of Munich, and then I have an overnight stay, and then I go to my skiing resort. And it's or in the summer holidays to Italy. But that's indeed a strange thing. But then I drove an electric vehicle with a range of 450 kilometers. And the first thing I thought was about those 2 moments in a year that I might have to charge 2 times extra to get there. So I understand what you're saying, but it is a fact. People are not rational. So I think that's the maybe even the biggest boundary for people, right?
And you mentioned it correctly. It's a psychological barrier. The use case is very, very rare. And I think it's about education. And you are talking about a 450 kilometer range car. Nowadays, even our SUV has 600 plus kilometer range. It changes the story dramatically, and the fast charging also. So I think that development of way of thinking and how to approach it is important. I'm a big supporter of education. We need to educate people, society, drivers in the way that they have to experience it, and maybe also with use cases and talking about it. We're not doing it enough.
Do you also help companies in educating their drivers at Zeekr, or is that something that they should do themselves?
Of course, it's a little bit a win-win situation. We want to sell cars, so we point out, of course, the advantages, and we are talking about use case. We are also taking that in a kind of thought leadership initiative. That survey we did to make clear to the people outside in the public what is the situation in Europe. We broadcasted with more than 1.7 billion reach. So we are also trying to really bring that education forward, because at the end, as you said it's a sustainable mobility. And don't talk about emissions in terms of pollution of cities. Imagine you would still have all the diesel cars in populated cities, how the air quality would be. All these life quality things are not considered in all that discussion.
No.
Yeah.
And Michael, you are, of course, one of our experts for the International Fleet Managers Institute, with one of your topics being the electrification. So you are more or less educating the fleet managers that needs to know more. What are the questions you get from those fleet managers?
Well, there are many questions around really how can we bring employees in a positive way into an electric vehicle. And I think what I did when I was working for Microsoft, I said, I need to walk the talk. I cannot mandate that employees should drive an electric vehicle than driving a diesel car by myself. So already more than 4 years ago, I moved from a diesel car into an electric vehicle just to test it and to learn. Back in these days, it was more difficult than today. And to learn how to drive an electric vehicle, with limited choice, with sometimes really expensive cars. But we went down that road. And obviously, it's also good to have executive support. Executive sponsorship is always a good thing. And when you do all of that, not in high speed, but with the appropriate speed, when you engage with the Workers' Council, when you engage with HR, when you work together with the car manufacturers, with the lease companies, then you can really build up a wonderful environment which makes it easier for the employees to step into the car, give them the opportunity to test drive. We even installed a subscription model, which was not the typical 48 months lease duration, but we said, okay, you can have a subscription for 12 months to test if an electric vehicle is the one of choice for you or maybe not. That was very positive accepted. And we made really good progress in the whole electrification strategy for the company overall. But again, it was embedded in the overall sustainability targets of the company. And therefore, people understood we need to do the right things.
Yeah, but so the subscription model really helped to push that electrification for Microsoft at the time.
People to understand what it means to drive an electric vehicle in that subscription model, which we made with a rental car company. the employees had the opportunity to swap between cars, to test different cars. That was really good, very much appreciated, and that helped a lot to convince. And then, of course, you can do things like we had Viva Engage. That is it's an intranet platform where people could exchange. We founded a group of electric car drivers who started then to help each other, who gave advice, who gave consultancy between each other. It was wonderful to see how this audience were growing. And then at a certain moment, things start with their own dynamic, and everything worked well.
Yeah. So that you need to push from the top as well. They have to drive electric as well.
Yeah.
And in that case, I think it's very good also that there are premium brands now also available to drive battery electric. So yeah, in that case, I think the market is in Europe is indeed getting ready. To wrap up, gentlemen, because it's that time already. A last question, Michael, for you to answer first. Where do you see Zeekr in, let's say, 5 years? In the competition of the battery electric vehicle?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a different one. I think the product itself is great, at least what I've seen so far and what I've tested. And I'm a believer that there's space for the newcomers, like Zeekr. It's a difficult market, not only Germany. I think overall the automotive market in Europe. But I think there's a good chance for Zeekr to come to life and to really get cars on the road here, also in Germany. But sorry to say, I would not be brave enough to give a bet where it's going to be, but I'm sure you will have the place.
Okay. Well, thank you. I understand, Michael. I understand. Lothar, same question for you.
Of course, we have very ambitious plans. I think we discussed that the product substance is there. We have the power of Geely in the back. We have the technology. We are leading in many areas. That's why I believe, and that's also what our ambition is, to be a important player in this premium segment, and climbing also step by step forward on the podium. Of the segments, but of course it will be not a sprint or a question of a few years. This will take longer, and we are very motivated, and we believe we can make it happen.
Okay, so in 5 years, top 10 of the premium market, a top 10 premium brand.
I think that would be not ambitious enough. I think we will be in 5 years probably already a step further. Why I'm so confident with that, I know what we have ahead of us in terms of product launches. So we will be very, very fast during the next months with launching more products in significant important segments in Europe, and also launching products in luxury segments which reconfirm our brand positioning to be a significant player here in Europe.
Okay, so we have to watch Zeekr closely in the coming years. More to come. All right, gentlemen, Michael, Lothar, thank you very much for joining me in this Fleet Europe podcast. And to the listeners, of course, thank you for listening and watching, because nowadays, of course, a podcast is also to be seen on YouTube. And you can follow us on fleeteurope.com for more insights in the fleet and mobility sector. Thank you very much.